I think there is a chance. I'm going to call it a... I'm going to use the fate chart here and see... We're at Chaos 5, and I think that it is likely that she is going to, part of whatever this meeting is, she is going to like make him a person of interest, to see if he and Carol sort of, make a connection at this point. That is a 65 or less, and that is a 54, so that is a yes. Part of her goal during this next meeting is going to be to start that process. So the question is, does Abel come to that understanding? So we're going to say, we're going to give him he's got his 2 D8s because of for his expertise. I'm going to give him another D8 for knowledge about how all of the consortium sort of works. And we're going to call this... difficulty of 9. 12. Yeah, so he's starting to put that together in his head, too. Not only does he think that something's going down as far as his position within the consortium, tied in with whatever Carol Shelby's been doing, but he doesn't. He thinks it's going to be bad. Whatever this thing is that Carol talked about, he's understanding. I think coming to the understanding that this is a much larger situation than he is aware of. Got a couple minutes left here, so I need a name. We're going to call that guy. I don't want it to necessarily be something. Aiden, that's a good name. I asked ChatGPT for 10, what did I say? 10 sci-fi names, and it gave me things like Nebulon Prime and Zaxxon 7s. That's obviously not going to be this guy's name, so we're going to make a sheet for him. And Aiden. It's related to Abel. And I'm going to say that he's a positive on Carol because his association with Abel. Okay, so Abel gets up from his desk, and Aiden is out there. He's moved from like his shelves to whatever. He's working on some kind of small part, like digging at it with whatever their version of a screwdriver is. And Abel says, Aiden, you know, say like that. He says, Aiden, listen, I need you to get at least 4 cargo movers into this office in the next 10 minutes and start loading it up with all of our essentials. And when I say essentials, I mean essential tools, hard to find parts. Don't worry about anything common, nothing big. Just fill up these movers, load them on the ship. You arranged everything. I don't know where anything is. There was a blue bag, about this big, blue bag. It's got a logic shunt in it. You remember seeing something like that? It was like, I think so. Yeah. And he reaches out into one of the shelves and pulls out this blue, looks like a blue travel thing. Great. I'll be in the hangar deck. I'll catch up with you there. Abel books it off to the hangar deck, and it is as busy as it always is. There's all kinds of ships there, people coming and going. You know, people there. I mean, there's hundreds of techs and engineers in this station, and he's going to. First thing he does is he goes off to one corner of the hangar deck where his ship is. His ship is a mid-sized, completely custom it's like an industrial ship. I have it in my head that somehow he was able to get a ship that was part of a terraforming detail. I have his family being part of that, and he went off this different way. So he's ended up with this like heavy industrial loader type ship that he has been modifying over the course of the last whatever years to be a personal transport. It's got his own AI in there, and he refers to his Nova. I'm going to call this Nova. Nova doesn't care one way or the other about Carol. And he gets to his entryway, bangs on it a couple times, very slowly comes down. He's, come on. He gets into his main, when he steps into his ship, it kind of goes off in either direction. In the back is the engineering section, the cargo section. There are loading doors back there, and the ship moved large, like earth-moving type machinery once upon a time. And then off to the other side of the cruise quarters, the CNC, the cockpit, all that stuff is down there. All the technical part of engineering is down there as well. As he's going through, he's banging on the wall panels that are lighting up sections that he's moving through the ship, and he calls out, "Nova, we need to do pre-flight on the fly." And the voice rings out through the corridor. "Yes, Captain. Pre-flight on the fly. Power-up procedure will take 15 minutes. Abel says, "That's all right. You got an hour. Listen, I got a Mark 7 I need to mess with. I am going to hook your systems into their systems. I need you to do the opposite of what you see me doing on that Mark 7. Nova says, "I like it." Outside his ship, he gets to the cockpit. He starts to throw just enough switches to start getting his screens up, and the computer system starts to catalog navigational data that grabs, current setting data from navigational satellites, looks for any anomalies, asteroids moving through the system, that kind of stuff, and starts to, all the APUs and stuff start to fire off in the back of the ship, and there's this whine that turns into a hum, which then settles into sort of a dull roar that's always there on board most ships. He grabs a couple other hand-type tools and gets out of there, outside of his ship. We'll just call it the Nova. He opens up a small access panel, and one of the things he's pulled is a huge reel of data cable. Takes one side of this data cable, sticking out like the pigtail end, sticks it into a port that's behind this hatch in his ship, and starts winding this data cable out across the deck. We're going to see if anybody in the hangar thinks that is kind of a weird thing to do. So he is setting the difficulty. He's rolling 3d8s. It's 3d6s. Yeah, that is a monster roll. So, no, I mean, people notice him. They see him. There's people all over the place, and there's people lugging stuff all over the place, too. It doesn't seem to flip any alarm bells that he's dragging a data cable, unwinding it, basically from one side of a football-length hangar deck, to somewhere on the 20-yard line of the opposite side. And he's hooking that cable around boxes, and he's lifting crates, jamming it under it so it doesn't move. And he gets all the way out to the Mark 7. Mark 7 is gorgeous as a ship. It's the Mark 7s are brand new off the line. Hers might be number 8. But one thing he knows about it is that it's got basically all the same parts and pieces of a Mark 6, which he's intimately familiar with. So there is an external activator for a ship's AI along in the Consortium, in the line of duty ships. And it activates it's like a voice panel to get instructions in and out of ship. And he says, Engineer Chimera, performing requested maintenance from Ambassador Aria, Mark 7 and Abel. Mark 7's voice comes out through the panel. Says, state your request. Says, I need to open the external data hatch. I need to do some diagnostics on your navigational array. Aria said something about, your endpoints being off. Very well. The hatch from inside the AI activates and it flips down. And he plugs his data cable from his ship into the Mark 7. Then goes around to the access hatch, pops it, it starts to come down in the gangway. This ship is organized a little differently. It's not a cargo mover. It's built for speed. And he finds it interesting as well that there are weapons cabinets inside the ship every once in a while. For a crew of probably 4 or 5, there are enough small arms here for a detail of like 10 or so. He gets to the cockpit and he sits down and starts activating some of the screens so that he can get into the system, and looks out through the window, and he just has a moment of pause as he sees that weird ship that Shelby had not been able to identify in his encounter with Ambassador Aria. And he just calls out to his AI, which is now piping through the Mark 7. And he says, Nova, go secure. And there is a click and a beep. And the Nova AI says, we're secure, Captain. The Mark 7 cannot hear us. He says, is that an Inquisitor ship? And a few seconds later, Nova comes back. It seems to be. It is currently in lockdown. It is not communicating with the navigational arrays, and all external inputs are inboard. Basically, it's not hooked into the hangar. It's not broadcasting on sort of the frequency that all ships communicate on. And after a couple seconds, there's nothing you can do about that. But Abel knows that is a major thing. And not only is it major, it's dangerous. He starts to hack into the computer with the aid of his AIs. We're going to say his AI is a D6 asset going against. We're going to say this is going to be fairly difficult. I'm going to say D8s with a D10 asset for the Mark 7. Alright, that's 10 with a D8. Wow, that's an 8 with a D8. The Mark 7, Nova releases the cone of silence, basically. To keep that on for too long would tip things off. The Mark 7 comes through. Engineer Chimera, I've noticed you accessing part of systems that have nothing to do with my navigational array. And Abel says, no, it's a new thing. Says, I know. I thought I saw something. Incorrect in your default settings here. Has anyone else been within your systems? And he's trying to bluff his way through now. That is a better roll for him. That is a much better roll. So that's a 12, but he can't. He's basically, the way I'm ruling that is he can't quite. He's stopping anything bad from happening, but the effect die, because the effect dies aren't there for him. He can't win this encounter. We are going to say, nope, he's just going to try again. Oh, I've totally forgotten to look for any ones. He's going to say, All right, I'm ready to start my level 1 diagnostic. That's going to require you to shut down sensors, your sensor array in the navigation system, so that I can realign. And the Mark 7 says, shut it down. He is going to try to actually screw up her navigational array. Man. So that's a 16, but it brings her effect die down to an 8. I can't do a 16. He is realizing that he is losing this fight. Oh, I know what I should have done. The last roll, he won the roll, which should have given the Mark 7 a complication, but that's just going to be a D6. I don't think that's going to help me out. At a 16, that's a 12 or a 13. So now he's losing the roll, and that gives the Mark 7 a complication. Well, it gives him a complication. He's starting to have problems. I think there is a mod in Cortex that I don't know. We're gonna see. The Mark 7, instead of releasing control, is starting to turn on its diagnostics and recording system, and is rolling like a monster. So that is a 15 with a D10. I can't make that. That was a 5. I can do an 11 with a D8. That's gonna be it. The Mark 7 says, Engineer Hamira, I believe that you are illegally trying to access the ship's systems, and you are being locked out. And it begins a process of locking the computer systems. Nova comes over the intercom and says, Captain, get out of there. It's going to lock it's going to lock you in a moment. Abel rips out the piece of equipment that he had in the bag and jams 2 cables into 2 data ports on the console, which power everything down. And a small readout on the device that the cables were attached to is counting down from 10. He jumps out of the seat and books out of the ship. He activates his communicator and says, Aiden, we don't have an hour. We got to go right now. Grab whatever you can and meet me on the ship. He gets outside the ship and pulls the data cable. And he's going to just try to book it across dragging his data cable behind him. He probably should ditch it, but he doesn't know where he can find another one. We're going to see, we're going to call this is his hangar, so difficulty of 6. No problem. He's just dragging it behind him. The reel is automatically winding as fast as it can. It's catching stuff as it goes, and pulling things off of crates, and everyone like, hey, as he's running by, he makes it back to his ship just as Aiden, gets out of the door. He's only got 1 loader loaded, and he's moving as fast as he can to make it to the Nova. On his way, Abel is told to Nova, open the cargo doors. Cargo, the big, huge it's not an overhead door. It's actually, it lowers down. Just as that hits the ground, Aiden slams the mover up onto mover's like a big cargo, like cart, basically. And as the cargo door is coming up, and Abel hits the stairs, unhooks the data port from the Nova. Just at that point, the doors of the hangar open, and there's Ambassador Arya and 2 guards and 1 guy who looks, I don't know, like just dressed in black, Section 31 Star Trek-y type. Everyone has got pistols, and Ambassador Arya calls out, halt! He's obviously not going to halt. I just don't know if they're going to shoot. They might as well. They think he's a criminal now, and now her ship has told them he's a criminal. Yeah, they're gonna try to fire. So we're gonna say the 2 guards. We're gonna make them D8s, and they've got D6 for their pistols. We're gonna do this in 2 different things because the Inquisitor is going to be a very different situation. And he has got his 3 D8s. He's setting the difficulty. Difficulty is 6 with a D8, and they hit him. But they also rolled 2 1s. So he's going to grab a D8. I don't know if I have an extra D8. Use this one. For their complication. Well, we're going to say that hit is going to allow the Inquisitor to act. He is, at the same time that the guards drew their guns and each fired a round, one of them, like superficially slamming him in the back of his shoulder, but with a non-lethal wound, but it's enough to make him stumble on the stairs of his ship. The Inquisitor raises what looks like a dart pistol. It's got 5 or 6 pointy bits coming out of it. And he's no joke. We are going to say we got that, and make a D6 for his complication. He is still setting the difficulty. That's a terrible roll. That's a 9 and a D8. That's a 13 and a D8. Or I can do those are D8s. So yeah, he gets hit and goes unconscious as he is shocked into unconsciousness. Aiden is there in the doorway of the ship, sees this happen as Abel falls, like basically at the top stair of his gangway. And Aiden just grabs him and is going to pull him through. We're going to say that Aiden's got... I'll give him a D8 because he's completely panicked. 7 and a 7. Okay, so a 7 and 2 1s. So Abel is stuck. So this is actually going to turn out way different than I had imagined. The guards and the Inquisitor rush to the ship. One guard puts his hand on the back of the pants of Abel. The other guard has his gun labeled at Aiden and says, it's a very police story. On your knees, on your knees. Aiden holds up his hands and slowly steps down the gangway. Wow, that's very different. All right, that's where we're going to stop this episode for today. We'll see you tomorrow.